Jose, I think I found the woman that broke Genesis.
That's a pretty dramatic accusation. Who are we talking about?
Cain's wife.
One of the most famous mysteries in the entire Bible.
And maybe the most frustrating, because Genesis introduces her without ever telling us who she is. Think about it. Adam and Eve have Cain. Adam and Eve have Abel. Cain kills Abel. Cain is banished. Then suddenly Genesis says, Cain knew his wife. Excuse me? What wife? Where did she come from? Who are her parents? Why is nobody asking questions?
And the strangest part is, ancient readers don't seem confused at all.
Exactly. Modern readers stop and say, wait a minute. But Genesis just keeps moving like nothing happened.
Almost as if the original audience already knew the answer.
Or almost as if we're missing part of the story. Okay, Jose, maybe I'm missing something. Let's count. Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. That's 4 people. One of them dies. That leaves 3. So where exactly does a wife suddenly appear from?
And that's the question millions of people have asked for centuries. But here's something that surprises many readers. The Bible never treats Cain's wife as a mystery, not once.
Which honestly makes it even stranger.
Because Genesis never pauses to explain her. No introduction, no backstory, no genealogy, nothing. Genesis simply says, Cain knew his wife, and moves on.
It's like opening a movie halfway through.
Now, before we dive into theories, let's start with what Genesis actually says. Genesis later tells us that Adam had many sons and daughters, not just Cain, Abel, and Seth. Many sons, many daughters.
Wait, the daughters are actually mentioned?
Yes, Genesis chapter 5. Most people skip right past it, but it says Adam fathered sons and daughters, plural.
So according to Genesis itself, there were more children than the story focuses on.
Exactly. And that's why the traditional Jewish and Christian explanation is simple. Cain married a sister or a close relative.
Not exactly the kind of family reunion invitation most people were expecting.
No, probably not.
I suddenly understand why Genesis leaves out some details.
Ancient family trees can get complicated very quickly.
Okay, that sounds simple enough. Mystery solved, right?
Not so fast, because if the answer is that simple, another question immediately appears.
Of course it does.
How many years had actually passed? Because Genesis never tells us how old Cain was when Abel died.
Wait, you mean we don't actually know?
Not from Genesis. And that's where another ancient book enters the story, a book we've discussed before, the Book of Jubilees.
I knew it. The moment Genesis gets mysterious, Jubilees shows up.
And this time it brings something fascinating, because according to the Book of Jubilees, Cain's wife had a name, Owan.
So unlike Genesis, Jubilees actually identifies her.
It does. And according to Jubilees, Awan was Cain's sister, which means the author of Jubilees believed there was never a mystery at all.
Interesting. So ancient readers may have been much less confused than modern readers.
Possibly. But here's where things start getting really controversial, because not everyone accepts that explanation. And some people believe Cain's wife raises a much bigger question. A question about whether there were other people outside Eden.
Okay, now we're entering rabbit hole territory.
And that's exactly where we're going next.
Okay, Jose, let's talk about the elephant in the garden, the theory everybody eventually brings up. The idea that Cain's wife wasn't his sister at all, that she came from somewhere else, somewhere outside Eden.
And this is where we need to be very careful, because we're moving from what the text says to what some people speculate.
So we're leaving solid ground?
Not entirely, but we're definitely entering more controversial territory. Because neither Genesis nor the Book of Jubilees explicitly says there were other human populations living outside Eden.
Yet people keep proposing the theory. Why?
Because they're trying to answer questions like, who was Cain afraid of? Where did his wife come from? And who eventually lived in the city Cain built?
So what's the argument?
The argument usually goes like this. If Adam and Eve only had a few children at this point, and if Cain already had a wife, and if Cain later built a city, then perhaps there were already other people living outside the garden.
Sounds simple enough.
Except there is one problem. The Bible never actually says that.
Not even once?
Not explicitly, which is why most traditional Jewish and Christian interpretations reject the theory. The traditional understanding remains that all humans descended from Adam and Eve.
So where does Jubilees fit into all this?
Interestingly, Jubilees moves in the opposite direction. Instead of introducing other populations, it gives Cain's wife a name, Awan, and identifies her as Cain's sister.
So Jubilees is basically saying, mystery solved, move along.
Pretty much. And some later traditions went even further. They suggested that Cain and Awan may have been born together as twins. Though it's important to note that specific detail comes from later traditions and interpretations, not directly from the Book of Jubilees itself.
So if people hear the phrase, Cain married his twin sister, they should understand that's a traditional belief, not a verse found in Genesis.
Exactly. And making those distinctions is important.
You know what's funny? Everybody argues about Cain's wife, but almost nobody asks why Genesis doesn't seem concerned about the question.
That may be because ancient readers weren't reading Genesis the way modern readers do. Today, we tend to focus on missing details. Ancient readers were often more interested in the lesson of the story itself.
In other words, they weren't stopping every 2 verses and saying, wait a minute.
Exactly. They were focused on Cain's choices, his jealousy, his anger, his consequences. The wife wasn't the point of the story.
You know, Jose, the more we investigate these mysteries, the more I notice something. Every time Genesis leaves a question unanswered, people spend thousands of years debating the missing detail.
And sometimes we become so focused on the missing detail that we miss the bigger picture.
Which is?
The story isn't really about Cain's wife. The story is about Cain, his choices, his character, his relationship with God, his relationship with other people. The mystery of the wife is fascinating, but it isn't the central lesson.
So after everything we've explored today, who was Cain's wife?
The most likely answer? A close relative, possibly a sister. According to the Book of Jubilees, her name was Awan. And according to some later traditions, she may even have been born alongside Cain. But the Bible itself never explicitly names her.
And the theory of other people outside Eden?
It exists. Some people believe it. But it remains speculation rather than something clearly stated in Genesis or Jubilees.
So the mystery isn't completely solved.
No, but we may understand it better than we did before. You know, Maria, the more we study Genesis, the more I wonder if we're sometimes asking the wrong question.
What do you mean?
We ask, who was Cain's wife? Who was Cain afraid of? What was the mark of Cain? And those are fascinating questions. But maybe there's another question hiding underneath them.
Which is?
What was Genesis trying to teach the people reading it? Not just about history, but about human nature, about family, about choices, about the consequences of our actions. Maybe the greatest mysteries aren't the ones hidden in the text. Maybe they're the ones hidden inside us.
Okay, I think we've answered one mystery, but now I have another.
I knew you would.
Genesis says Cain built a city. A city. Not a house, not a village, a city. So my question is, who exactly was living there?
And that mystery may be even stranger than Cain's wife. Because the answer forces us to rethink everything we think we know about the early chapters of Genesis.
Looks like we're going down another rabbit hole. And we'll see you there.